Hi, this is Josh from the Fort Worth Trailer here again in another video where we just make stuff. In this video we are going to reassemble our Nerf Strong-arm cosplay custom paint job. We are going to reassemble it so that we can get ready to put all of the weathering on. So let's get started. Okay, so in order to make the weathering look real, I like to reassemble the gun. I guess you could do this separately, but I like to put it back together the way it's going to be. That way the weathering goes on, you know, kind of natural, because the gun is going to weather put together. So we might as well kind of mimic as best we can what we're doing. In order to do this, I lay everything out. I've got my screws here, all stuck to my magnet. I've got my pieces, and I've got some paper down because I've mentioned this before, but the spray paint especially, all of this takes really several days to cure completely before it is ready, before it's fully hard. And so it's still a little soft, and I don't want to get any scratches when I'm putting it down on the surface. So I do put a cloth down, always wear my gloves. And if you remember, I don't know if you watched the first word, disassemble, my little trick, this is a rare earth magnet, a neodymium magnet. They're kind of expensive, but they're easy to get. And I use this a lot. I put it on my screwdriver. It helps the screwdriver be a little bit magnetic by itself, but it also, obviously, if I lose something, I can pick it up. We're working with a lot of little screws, so that's very helpful. So the first thing I need to do in order to take this apart, or to put it back together, is to take it apart. Remember last time, I just put 2 screws in. This one's a little easy. All of the screws are the same size on this particular gun, so we don't have to worry about screw organization. On bigger guns, that is an issue, and more care needs to be taken. So I put this together just with 2 screws. So we're going to take it apart, and we're going to start putting it back together again. Now, as you recall, this is a separate piece that normally I would take out, and it would be with all of these other pieces. In this case, it got stuck in there, and I totally forgot to take it out. But I just wanted to let you know that is a separate piece. One of the first things you put back in. Now, remember, we do this sort of in reverse order. I'm going to take that out. Remember, there's a spring on this side of the charging handle. Let's put that in first. It goes through, there's a couple of notches here. It goes through the top notch. Oop. Yeah. When I'm taking it apart the first time, it sticks, and now it's falling out. Yeah, typical, right? So, make sure that the spring goes through the top notch and not the bottom one. The spring, then there's a little stud that the loop of the spring just goes around. There's no screw or anything holding it on. It just goes on the little stud. All right, now that's just going to stay there while we put the rest of it back together again. So now I'm going to put this back down inside there. Next is going to come the trigger. And the trigger, make sure the spring goes back in the right place. Trigger goes on that little guide post, and it seats down in there. Alright. This is the only screw that's different. It's got a little flat flange around the outside of it. And because I have my magnet on the screwdriver, now you can get magnetic screwdrivers, but either that or put a magnet on. It really helps with these little screws. So not too tight, because the trigger needs to be able to move. Tighten it down. Next piece, now this is tricky. This piece is tricky. There's this little spring that goes in it. And I don't know if you can see, I hope I can get this in the camera. There's a little hole right here. And I think that is ideally so you don't put the spring on and then try to put it on the gun. You actually put the piece down first, and it goes underneath the trigger piece. And now you can see that hole. You insert the spring through the hole and then push it in. It's a little tricky because the spring has to bend a little bit and the spring doesn't want to bend. All right. Now that can pop right back up. There's nothing holding that in, and that's why it's tricky. But that makes putting that spring in easy. Before I figured that out, I struggled mightily trying to get that to stay down there with the spring on it. See, even now, the spring wants to pop the whole thing back. So don't handle it too much from this point. You might even do this absolutely last, but at least kind of put your hand on it as you do some of the other steps. Put that in, make sure that it fits. Okay. Now we're talking about the cylinder. It's funny, I spend so much time painting this and it just totally gets covered up. But there you go. Make sure it's facing the right way. Yeah. Okay. There are little cradles here for this to set in, but they're not super deep indentions. And this, okay, gotta tell you, this is spring loaded. This little piece right here, the second kind of cylinder down, it's spring loaded and it locks into a circle right here. So as you're putting this down, it's easy to, you can push it, but if you pull it back, that helps too. Oh, there you go, locked in. Okay, that's still down. Now, at this point, you could try to put this little accessory clip thing back in. It goes right here with this spring. Ooh, that's fiddly. And like I said, I didn't paint it. I don't put that back in. That is totally up to you if you want to do that. So, now, as you push it down, you got to make sure that stuff lines up. Sometimes this is how you can tell if you didn't get your insides correct, because it won't push down flush. All right. We also at this time put this on, line it up, and now it's just a matter of putting the screws back together. If you end up with more screws, then you miss something. And at this point, there's a good chance that, especially on a more complicated gun, you miss something on the inside. Oh, that one never came out. So just tighten it up. I remember that. Be careful not to cock that back really until all the screws are in, or if not, you got to hold the two pieces together, because all of the springs and the forces inside will tend to pop the thing apart. It is frustrating because really the only way to tell if you've done it correctly is to cock it and fire it a few times. And if you haven't done it correctly and you have put all of the screws in, then you got to take all of the screws back out again. So on more complicated, larger rifles, sometimes I will put enough screws in to keep it together and do a few test fires. As we call it in the military, some function tests. Put it through its paces. All right. See, I have 2 screws left. One of them's here. Trying to see where I missed. Look at that. After warning you, you know what? That may be from a previous project. I do believe that there were some screws on my... Oh no, it's right there. How did I miss that one? See? Alright, now it's back together again. And we will do a functions check. Make sure it pops back by itself. Make sure the cylinder rotates. Yeah, now that's a little, let me tell you, these things brand new are a little fiddly, but that's good enough. Push the button, pops out. It's going to be a little stiff. That paint is like I said, it's a little soft. You actually don't want to play with it too much at this point because you will start scratching off the paint. Trust me, after a week, it gets really hard on there and the paint stays a lot better. It will eventually wear off. That's the thing. We're making this fake and we're weathering it. The paint will eventually wear off on its own and weather itself. So these are something that you can't do heavy play with if you want to keep them in pristine condition. It's funny. We work so hard to make them look old. And yet then you can't actually play with them to make them look old because they'll mess them up. But there it is. Back together again. Ready to move on to the next step and weather. Now that looks great if you ask me. It looks great. It looks weathered, but it will look just, man, even better once we put some dirt and grime on there, give it a little bit more character. So there you go. So thank you for watching today. Subscribe to our channel. Come back. We're going to be adding a lot more content as we move forward, as we improve our technological abilities and expand our space and all the projects that we have going on around here. I'm going to bring them to you and hopefully show you how to make a whole bunch of different stuff. So keep checking back. Always check our Etsy page or my Etsy shop so you can actually find this gun and other guns just like it that you can buy for yourself. Or if there's a project or something that you need done and you think that you'd like to ask me about it, feel free to either leave a comment or send me a message on Etsy and I will see if it's something that I'm able to do or, you know, willing to do. So anyway, thanks again, and until next time, bye.